the only 6 dumbbell exercises you need for massive arms that show through any shirt. Before we get started, leave a comment below with your name and your biggest training challenge right now. We will do our best to read as many comments as possible. Exercise number 1, single arm overhead dumbbell tricep extension. If you want arms that fill out your shirt sleeves, you need to understand something that a lot of people discover way too late. The tricep makes up roughly 2/3 of the total volume of your arm. Yes, that muscle that so many people neglect while doing their 10th set of curls is actually the one that makes the biggest visual difference. And the single arm overhead dumbbell tricep extension is one of the best tools to develop it. The beauty of this exercise lies in its ability to target the long head of the tricep, the largest of the 3 portions, in a fully lengthened position. When the arm is raised above the head, that portion is stretched to its maximum, and the growth stimulus in that position is enormous. On top of that, because it is unilateral, it corrects strength and size imbalances between arms, something almost everyone has and pretends not to notice. To perform it correctly, sit on a bench with back support or stand upright with a tight core. Hold a dumbbell in one hand and extend that arm above your head. Slowly bend the elbow, lowering the dumbbell behind your head until you feel a deep stretch in the tricep, then extend the arm back to the starting position. The elbow should remain pointed toward the ceiling throughout the entire movement. A helpful tip: use your free hand to lightly support the elbow of the working arm, helping keep it stable. A common mistake is letting the elbow flare out to the side, which takes tension off the tricep and puts unnecessary stress on the shoulder. Another mistake is using too much weight and shortening the range of motion, losing precisely the stretch that makes this exercise special. Perform 3 to 4 sets of 10 to 12 repetitions with a controlled lowering phase. As a contraindication, people with limited shoulder mobility or pain when raising the arm overhead should avoid this movement and prefer variations with the arm in a lower position, such as the skull crusher, which we will cover shortly. Exercise number 2, incline dumbbell curl. Now it is time for everyone's favorite, the bicep curl. And if you could only do one curl for the rest of your life, this one would be a very strong candidate. The incline dumbbell curl places the arm behind the body's midline, stretching the long head of the bicep in a way that standing curls simply cannot. And science backs this up. Recent studies on hypertrophy show that training a muscle in a lengthened position produces more growth than training it in shortened positions. Some research has observed differences of more than 15% in gains in favor of training with an emphasis on the stretch position. In other words, that feeling of a deep bicep stretch at the bottom of the movement is not suffering for nothing, it is growth being built. This exercise intensely targets the long head of the bicep, the one responsible for the famous peak when you flex your arm. To perform it correctly, set the bench to an incline of approximately 45 to 60 degrees. Lie back with your spine fully supported and let your arms hang naturally at your sides, holding the dumbbells with your palms facing forward. Curl the dumbbells up by bending the elbows without letting them drift forward and lower slowly to full extension. You will know you are doing it right when you feel the bicep stretch deeply at the bottom of each repetition. A mistake I see many people make is cutting the descent short out of fear of the discomfort of the stretch, throwing away the main benefit of the exercise. Another mistake is rocking the body or lifting the back off the bench to help with the upward phase. Perform 3 to 4 sets of 8 to 12 repetitions with moderate weight. Anyone with pain in the front of the shoulder or a history of bicep tendon injury should start at a lower incline angle and use light weight, progressing carefully. Exercise number 3, dumbbell skull crusher. The name sounds a little alarming, I know. It sounds more like a combat move than an exercise. But do not worry, the idea is for the dumbbell to come close to your forehead, not actually hit it. This is one of the most complete exercises for the tricep, working the long and lateral head simultaneously with great emphasis. It is precisely the lateral head that creates that horseshoe shape on the back of the arm, the detail that appears when you straighten your arm and that separates ordinary arms from arms that turn heads. To perform it correctly, lie on a flat bench holding a dumbbell in each hand, arms extended toward the ceiling with palms facing each other. Keeping your elbows fixed and pointed forward, bend only your forearms, lowering the dumbbells toward your forehead or slightly behind your head. Then extend your arms back up, squeezing the tricep hard at the top. An extra tip to maximize gains: lowering the dumbbells slightly behind the line of your head increases the stretch on the long head and amplifies the stimulus, turning the exercise into a kind of hybrid with the overhead extension. A common mistake is letting the elbows flare out to the sides on the way down, which shifts the work to the chest and shoulders. Another classic mistake is moving the shoulders along with the movement, turning the exercise into a disguised pullover. The elbows are the only axis that should move. Perform 3 sets of 10 to 12 repetitions, prioritizing a slow lowering phase of 2 to 3 seconds. As a contraindication, anyone who suffers from elbow tendonitis or pain in that area should be cautious, as this movement places significant stress on that joint. In those cases, reduce the weight, increase the repetitions, or temporarily substitute with rope tricep pushdowns, which tend to be more comfortable. Exercise number 4, dumbbell preacher curl. You know that person doing curls, swinging their entire body, looking like they are dancing with the dumbbells? I used to be that person, and you probably were too. The preacher curl exists precisely to put an end to that. By resting the back of the arms on the inclined pad, you eliminate any possibility of cheating, and the bicep is forced to work on its own, without the help of momentum or the shoulders. This exercise emphasizes the short head of the bicep and the work in the shortened position, perfectly complementing the incline curl we saw earlier. One targeting maximum stretch, the other targeting complete isolation. Together they cover the bicep fully. To perform it correctly, adjust the preacher bench so that your armpit is seated at the top of the pad. Hold a dumbbell with your palm facing up, or one in each hand if you prefer the bilateral version, and lower the weight in a controlled manner until the arm is almost fully extended. Then curl up, squeezing the bicep to maximum contraction. An extra tip: at the top of the movement, hold the contraction for 1 second before lowering. That small detail increases time under tension and makes a real difference in results. A common mistake is not extending the arm on the way down, doing half repetitions. Another dangerous mistake is using excessive weight and suddenly relaxing at the bottom, because in that position the distal bicep tendon is vulnerable. Always lower with full control. Perform 3 sets of 10 to 15 repetitions with moderate weight. If a preacher bench is not available at your gym, you can improvise by resting the back of your arm on a high-angle incline bench. The isolation effect is practically the same. As a contraindication, people with a history of bicep tendon injury near the elbow should avoid full extension at the bottom of the movement, stopping just short of the end of the range of motion to protect the structure. Exercise number 5, dumbbell tricep kickback. If the overhead tricep extension works the muscle in a stretched position, the kickback does the opposite. It takes the tricep to peak contraction in the most shortened position possible, and that is exactly why it earns a spot on this list. When you extend your arm back with your elbow raised, the tricep reaches a peak contraction that few exercises can reproduce. Regular practitioners often report that it is the movement where they feel the muscle burn the most, and that intense mind-muscle connection is one of its greatest advantages. To perform it correctly, support one hand and the same side knee on a bench, keeping your torso nearly parallel to the floor with a neutral spine. With the dumbbell in the other hand, raise your elbow to torso height and keep it tucked close to your body. From there, extend the forearm backward until the arm is completely straight, squeeze hard for a moment, and return slowly. The upper arm from shoulder to elbow should remain completely still, like a hinge throughout the entire set. An extra tip to improve results: as you extend the arm, slightly rotate your wrist so that your palm faces the ceiling at the end of the movement. This intensifies the contraction of the lateral head. A common mistake is letting the elbow drop during the repetitions, which drastically reduces tension on the tricep. Another mistake is using too much weight and swinging the dumbbell. This is a precision exercise, not an ego exercise. Light weights work perfectly here, and insisting on heavy dumbbells will only turn the movement into a purposeless swing. Perform 3 sets of 12 to 15 repetitions on each arm, holding the contraction at the end of each repetition for 1 second. As a contraindication, people with lower back pain should always use the bench support instead of performing the movement, standing with the torso bent over without support, as the position requires constant spinal stabilization. Exercise number 6, dumbbell hammer curl. I saved one of my favorites for last. The hammer curl is an exercise that many people do, thinking it is just another bicep variation, when in reality it is the key to arm thickness. With a neutral grip, palms facing each other, the spotlight shifts away from the bicep and falls on the brachialis, a muscle that sits underneath the bicep. What many people do not know is that when the brachialis grows, it literally pushes the bicep upward, making the arm look taller and denser. In addition to that, the hammer curl intensely targets the brachioradialis, the most voluminous muscle of the forearm, creating that thick transition between arm and forearm that shows even through a shirt. To perform it correctly, stand upright holding a dumbbell in each hand with your palms facing your thighs. Keeping your elbows close to your torso, curl both arms up, raising the dumbbells to shoulder height while maintaining the neutral grip, then lower in a controlled manner to full extension. An extra tip: performing the movement in an alternating fashion allows you to use slightly more weight with good technique, while the simultaneous version demands more from your core. Vary between the two across your training weeks. A mistake I see many people make is swinging the torso to help on the way up, turning the curl into a lower back exercise. Another mistake is cutting the descent short, robbing the brachioradialis of its eccentric work. Perform 3 to 4 sets of 8 to 12 repetitions, maintaining a controlled lowering phase of 2 to 3 seconds to take full advantage of the movement's potential. This is one of the exercises with the fewest contraindications on this list. In fact, people who feel wrist discomfort with the traditional palms up curl often adapt very well to the neutral grip of the hammer curl, as it keeps the wrist in a more natural position. Now that the 6 main exercises are in your arsenal, here are the 2 bonus movements that complete the visual of your arms. Bonus exercise number 1, wrist curl. There is no point having big arms with thin forearms. The proportion gives it away, and a weak grip limits every other exercise in your training. The wrist curl is the most direct movement for developing the forearm flexors, the musculature on the inner side that adds volume and grip strength. And the benefit goes beyond aesthetics. A stronger grip allows you to hold more weight on curls, rows, and presses, unlocking progress across your entire body. To perform it correctly, sit on a bench and rest your forearms on your thighs or on the bench itself, with your palms facing up and your wrist hanging past the edge of the support. Hold the dumbbells and let your wrists drop in a controlled manner, allowing the weight to roll slightly toward your fingers. Then curl your wrists upward as high as you can, squeezing the forearm at the top. The range of motion is short, and that is perfectly fine. An extra tip: because it is a muscle group accustomed to working all day long, the forearm responds better to higher repetitions. Prefer light to moderate weights with a high rep count. A common mistake is using too much weight and lifting the forearms off the support, turning the exercise into a disguised curl. The forearms must stay in contact with the support from start to finish. Perform 3 sets of 15 to 20 repetitions. As a contraindication, people with carpal tunnel syndrome or active tendinitis in the wrist area should avoid this movement until the condition is treated, as it increases pressure precisely in that region. Bonus exercise number 2, wrist extension. If you train the wrist curl, you absolutely must train the opposite movement. The wrist extension targets the forearm extensors, the musculature on the outer side, and it is what builds that forearm visible from above, the one that truly shows when you are in a short-sleeve shirt holding anything. Beyond the volume, this exercise plays an important protective role. The imbalance between the strong flexors and weak extensors is one of the factors associated with pain on the outer side of the elbow, commonly known as tennis elbow. Strengthening the extensors helps keep the joint healthy enough to handle years of heavy training. To perform it correctly, the position is practically the same as the wrist curl, but with your palms facing down. Rest your forearms on your thighs or on the bench with your wrists hanging past the edge and raise the back of your hands as high as you can, then lower slowly and in a controlled manner. Keep in mind that the extensors are naturally weaker than the flexors, so use a lighter weight than what you used in the previous exercise. Do not be surprised if the difference is significant. That is normal and expected. A common mistake is performing the movement too fast, practically bouncing the dumbbells. The muscle group is small and control matters more than weight. Perform 3 sets of 15 to 20 repetitions, preferably right after the wrist curl, closing out your arm training session. As a contraindication, anyone experiencing lateral epicondylitis in an acute pain phase should treat the inflammation first, as this movement places direct stress on the affected tendons. With the exercises defined, there are 3 adjustments that will multiply your results. Tip number 1, train twice a week. If you train arms only once a week and are unsatisfied with the results, this might be the answer. After a training session, muscle protein synthesis, which is the process of building new muscle, remains elevated for approximately 48 to 72 hours. Once that window passes, the stimulus is over and the muscle spends days simply waiting for the next session. By splitting the total volume across 2 weekly sessions, you keep that building process active for a much longer period throughout the week. And take note, the idea is not to double the number of sets, it is to divide them. If you were doing 12 sets of bicep work in a single day, switch to 6 sets on 2 different days. The total volume is the same, but the quality of each set increases because you arrive more rested, and the frequency of the stimulus doubles. I have observed that practitioners who make this simple change notice strength differences within the first few weeks and visual differences within a few months. Allow at least 48 hours of rest between the 2 arm sessions to allow full recovery. A simple split, half the exercises on this list on Monday and the other half on Thursday, for example. Tip number 2, do not leave arm training only for the end of your sessions. This is one of the most common and most self-sabotaging habits that exists. A person does an entire back workout with heavy rows and pull-downs that already demand a great deal from the bicep, and only then, with their arms completely drained, they do 2 or 3 sets of curls half-heartedly, almost like a formality before heading home. The result is predictable: weak sets, low weight, poor technique, and insufficient stimulus. Your bicep and your tricep deserve more respect than that. If big arms are a priority for you, treat them as a genuine priority. One solution is to start your workout with arm exercises on at least one day of the week, when your energy and focus are at their peak. An even better option is to create a dedicated arm day using the exercises on this list where they receive 100% of your energy. A muscle trained at the beginning of a session receives more weight, more quality repetitions, and more focus. And in training, what dictates growth is the quality of the stimulus. Reorganizing the order of your training costs nothing and can be the difference between arms that grow and arms that merely participate in the workout. Tip number 3, control the eccentric phase and use a full range of motion. This tip is worth more than any supplement on the shelf. The eccentric phase is the lowering phase of the movement when the muscle lengthens while resisting the load, and it is simply neglected by the majority of people who drop the weight quickly just to start the next repetition. The problem is that this phase represents 40 to 50% of the hypertrophy potential of an exercise. When you let the weight fall on the way down, you are literally throwing away nearly half of your results. The eccentric phase generates greater positive muscle damage, the kind of micro damage that signals to the body that it needs to rebuild the muscle larger and stronger. In practice, lower the weight over 2 to 3 seconds on every exercise on this list, feeling the muscle resist the load. And alongside control comes full range of motion. Fully extend your arm on curls and get a deep stretch on tricep extensions. Half repetitions build half muscles. If you need to reduce the weight to achieve this, do so without hesitation. The lighter dumbbell with perfect execution beats the heavy dumbbell with poor execution in any long-term comparison. If you enjoyed this and want to see our special list of the 10 things that force your body to build muscle faster after 40, we have a video appearing on screen right now showing each of them in detail. It is free, so make sure you check it out. Thank you for watching all the way through, and God bless you, my friend.